Welcome to Project Planning for Post-Harvest Efficiency, Profitability, and Food Safety. In this session, we'll talk about equipment. Equipment that you're using every day, day in, day out. This will become, these pieces of equipment will become like your family. And you want equipment that is going to be durable and cleanable. And let's start with dunk tanks. Many people are washing or dunking greens or bunches of radishes or whatnot in dunk tanks. And of course, the best dunk tanks are likely stainless steel, and those could be custom built like we see in some of these settings or adapted from other situations. Putting bubblers in tanks is a great idea. It takes some extra effort, but it can also reduce the amount of movement of your hands on greens and reduce the damage of fragile greens. And the number of the amount of product you can get out over time can increase dramatically. Keep note of this picture on the left as well, thinking about creature comfort around the dunk tanks. You'll see those padded areas where you're standing to reduce strain on the legs over time. And wheels as well, if you can, once you know where tanks go, and especially if you need to quickly change out different lines for different crops, it's really important to have things very movable. When you're first getting started, however, you may have dunk tanks sitting solidly, or if the line never changes, you may keep them in a solid position, as in on the left. Double or triple bay sinks are the most obvious and a place that a lot of growers start. You can purchase them from restaurant supply companies, and either new or used, and the used ones can often be a good start because there are many products that are turned over from restaurants that don't make it. And so they're high turnover volume, and the products can be great. Why double or why triple bay sinks? Having multiple dunks in succession is a real good practice, both for getting successively less gritty water and to, maybe more importantly, dropping at least by a factor of 10 the amount of bacteria that are suspended in the dunk tank water. And so if you think about a triple bay dunk, by the third dunk, you're down. If you start with 100 bacteria per unit of water, you'll be down to 1 bacteria per unit per water at any given time in those 3 tanks. Designed for flow and using a combination of custom build products. In this case, you'll see a very large tank in the foreground that is used for the dirtier product, and then a custom L-shaped stainless table that is used for multiple purposes, or putting things through lines or spraying, and then the triple bay dunk, and then another long counter. You've got all sorts of possibilities in a place like this for multiple different pack out and dunk lines. Many growers use Rubbermaid tanks. They're inexpensive, widely available, and versatile. They're also washable, and they're very durable, maybe not quite as durable as stainless steel. They generally have big drains on the bottom as well, but can be dumped. So if you're just starting out, this is a great way to go, and they can also be modified, as you see here at Footprint Farm, with what would be called a rack, shelving rack, a plastic-coated shelving rack that's used in retail situations, set on top of the back, and therefore, as you're dunking head lettuce in this case, the pack out can continue or be held in the back of the dunk tank area.
So this plastic-coated wire shelving or closet material is also great to be used as a spray table. So you can set it up across sawhorses or even dunk tanks like this and collect that water. So as you're rinsing off your roots or crops that require spraying, it makes it easy to clean, easy to dry, and very adaptable, low-cost spray table. So while we're talking about washing roots, another common piece of equipment is the drum or the barrel washer. They can range in size and price. An example on the left is one that's polycarbonate. It's got plastic staves in there to roll around your roots. Another commonly available one is made out of wood and steel hoops, and this is also 8 feet long and can and can clean a lot of vegetables in a continuous system. Another example of a drum washer is the Willsie washer. This one here allows you to actually recirculate the water, which obviously you change as needed, but it allows you to save water a little bit. This is available in both painted or stainless, so it's got a full stainless drum for long-lasting durability. This isn't quite as convenient for a continuously run system, but works great as a batching system where you add stuff in, clean it up, and then take it out.
One consideration with recirculated water, on the one hand, it definitely saves water, which is a benefit, and one also needs to think about the quality of that water, and over time bacteria build up in that water. Some of them can be pathogenic bacteria, and if you have pathogenic bacteria in recirculated water, you end up dosing all of the product that comes through there with that contamination. In the case of a raw eaten product like carrots, that would really make a difference. So treating that water to make sure that it is you're reducing the risk of contamination is really important, either with the sanitizer in the tank, the holding tank, or with an injector.
You could also consider frequency of water changes, right? So so either treating or regularly exchanging that water with fresh water to essentially come up with separation between batches.
Another benefit to this machine is that it's smaller footprint. It's not 8 feet long. It's about 4 foot square because it's designed to sit on a pallet bin. So it can be a little bit more easily moved around and just a smaller space in your area. Another common piece of equipment is the brush washer. Cleans vegetables quite well, but it's got all these brushes which make it a little bit challenging to clean, or quite a bit challenging to clean. They're often set up with absorbing donuts at the end here, and those soak up the water from the produce and then essentially squeegee out the donuts so the water drains down below. This just has a bunch of crevices between the donuts that are difficult to clean.
If you're looking to buy a new piece of equipment, the cleanability and durability over time is really important, and it is worth considering a brush washer, and it does things that other cleaning equipment can't. But the cleaning limitations and the fact it's painted metal, over time, it can be quite a bit of maintenance and higher risk.
Hans, you bring up a good point, and I'll insert another slide, is that some of this equipment shows up used, and there's a certain level of maintenance needed. You may need to replace the brushes and the bristles. Things may be worn out and dirty and need to be replaced. And if you're considering buying a brush washer like this, many of the new models have a lot of upgrades to them that make it easier to clean. They can come in stainless steel now, so you don't have to worry about rust or flaking paint. They changed the fencing material on the side, how the unit kind of goes together. They've improved access to make it a little bit more cleaner.
I think there's another key point about brush washers, and that is to think about what crops are being cleaned in it. And I've seen brush washers that have been in use for 20 years that are immaculate, and it's largely because they're used for crops that really just need that surface dusting. So peppers or even apples going. So something that doesn't have a lot of vegetation or rootlets that are going to come off and really make it more difficult to clean the brushes. It's really astounding to see how focused use of a brush washer for relatively smooth crops can be very, very easily maintained and cleaned. The places where I've seen that happen also understand that this is a challenge to clean, and they dedicate time and experienced crew to do it well. So that's another thing, is prioritizing. It may be a great piece of equipment for cleaning the produce, but if it's a tough one to clean, you need to either dedicate time and skill to do it. The other thing that brush washer manufacturers always point out to me is that they really want people to get in touch with them to understand how they're using the machine, because there are different brushes for different crops, and so that's another thing that isn't always obvious, especially if you're picking something up on the used market. You think a brush washer is a brush washer, but in reality, there are brushes that may work better for a particular crop, and in particular, make it easier to clean.
Now, a different machine that washes vegetables is a rinse conveyor. A rinse conveyor works similarly. Product goes in one end and comes out dirty and comes out clean on the other end. It starts off with a high volume water rinse on a chain belt. It's showering down recirculated water onto the crops. As the product moves down the line, it also has a high pressure spinner, much more like a dishwasher, but with the pressure washer nozzle on it, to really blast that dirt and soil off of the crops. Now, you can use these two modes individually or together, and flow rates of water and pressure is all adjustable. So whether you're washing roots or roots with tops or head lettuce, you can dial in the machine to work best.
And Andy, can't you even use it to wash bins, harvest bins?
Absolutely, yeah. Farmers have found that it works great for washing crates, whether you're washing crates at the end of the day and you're pushing them all through at the same time, or you wash one crate of sweet potatoes, you run the sweet potatoes through, follow it with the crate. Now you have a clean crate to put the next batch of sweet potatoes in. So it's kind of a one-for-one system.
Also talked with growers who are sending product through this machine in crate, which is an interesting use of it as well. So not unloading onto the belt, but sending everything through. So that's interesting. The other point we should probably make here is, if you're using one machine for washing produce and separately for washing crates, it's important to really think about having a clean break between the two. So having a dedicated cleaning and sanitizing after, say, washing crates before you wash head lettuce. So think of it the same way as what you might do between crops. But trying to, again, the point being, we're trying to prevent cross-contamination from a crate, for example, that might have been set on the ground, to head lettuce going through the rinse conveyor in the next stage.
And when you mention a clean break, remember that is really about thinking about your whole process, your whole flow line, and figuring out, where are these critical control points. This is more of a asset approach coming from the food processing world. Really important to think about, where can I stop and make an action that prevents cross-contamination.
We have a lot of information on this machine in the blog post linked below, so you should check that out. We've got user reviews and videos showing how this works and how growers use it. Another thing to point out is that this machine is a bit easier to clean. You can hinge this up and clean out that basin on the bottom, or clean out the belt and drain out all the water. So it is designed with cleanability in mind, and makes it a little bit easier for the user to access all parts of the machine.
Once you go through dunk tanks or rinsing product, much product needs to be dried, obviously. And if you're just starting out, the there are a lot of different spinners out on the market. Spinning greens especially is a real great way to go to reduce the moisture level, increase the shelf life over time. And hand spinners are a good place to start. And you can use them reliably. They build muscle at the same time and can work well up to about maybe 20 pounds of greens per harvest if you're cranking it out. And then at a certain point, you'll start thinking, this is not a good use of my time. And there's a lot of product to move through, and you notice all of a sudden that you have a pinch point, and that bottleneck pinch point is that hand spinner. So where do you go from there?
From there, you consider going to an electric spinner. So we have a variety of options listed at the short link below, green spinners, and that showcases a variety of options from the handheld spinner to a motorized handheld spinner to a restaurant motorized spinner, all the way up to commercial and industrial machines like the photo on the left. A lot of farmers find themselves stuck in the middle between hand cranking and electric spinners. The problem is the electric spinners often have quite a high price point, and they're tempted to use a machine like a washing machine to convert into a green spinner, which happens to fall right in between the price points listed there. So we have a guide to help you convert these machines with hygienic design in mind. This is important so you're not inducing more risk and you're going about it with a thoughtful approach, because this is not just for washing your clothes anymore. It's for washing vegetables that you eat. So how you clean it and how you convert it is very important, and we highlight that in the resources listed below. This is an example of a Speed Queen washing machine with a full stainless drum, and we've removed the sides to increase cleanability and drying around the machine. You can read more about this on the resources listed below.
So to pull it all together, these pieces of equipment you're using every day in, day out. You're going to get to know them well. They are make or break. The whole lifeblood of your business is going to rely on your ability to take crops quickly and efficiently, harvest them, and move them into a wash pack line like you see here, and get a high quality product, pack it out to a satisfied customer. If you look at this photo more carefully, you can see it all. Products coming in through the garage door. There's a holding space for it before a triple bay dunk system, and greens, salad greens in this case, are moving through that triple bay dunk system on the left and come around to the converted green spinner, which is in the foreground on the right. Spinning happens, and then the product is dumped into the pack out crates directly and moves on to another wheelie cart, which will be going into the cooler or maybe directly out to the buyer. When you're done with an intense pack out wash pack session, cleaning and sanitizing food contact surfaces is essential to maintaining and managing risk over time. And it's pretty clear a lot of growers think about cleaning where they'll just spray the surfaces off and let them dry. And this definitely works for reducing obvious grime that you can see or dirt. However, over time, as many growers know, especially on crates or bins where there's crevices, biofilm builds up over time, and a lot of biofilms you can't even see. So regular cleaning is essential. So the first step is to remove the obvious debris and rinse that surface and make sure you don't see any loose material. Then applying detergent, and a scrub brush is the place where that detergent is going to actually dissolve the grime or dirt particles and also dissolve partially in water, and you can scrub that to move it around, and then rinsing that surface off is important. Well rinsing surface, and then whether you sanitize or not is optional, but for a complete clean break, you would want to sanitize afterwards. And make sure you read the label on the sanitizer. Many sanitizers you do not rinse afterwards, but some you might. And a third step, an additional bit of information is that we may have heard of disinfecting. And disinfecting is like a sanitizer step, but it's going to be a much higher concentration of the sanitizer for a longer contact time, and usually rinsing is needed in a disinfection step. Disinfection would not be used unless there was real obvious contamination, blood or bodily fluids on surfaces, or in this COVID pandemic, if you had someone you knew had contacted who became sick or was tested positive for the virus. It's important to have the right tools for the job. Many times growers will want to clean and they have a good idea about cleaning, but in that split second where they can't find the right tool and it's not in the right place, the cleaning doesn't happen. So part of your job getting set up to clean well, probably one of the most important parts, is to get the right tools for the job and have those tools themselves be cleanable. In this case, we have tools that don't harbor bacteria very easily and can easily be cleaned. And having them in an obvious place, maybe color coded so they stand out, they pop out, and they're saying, use me, use me. And having all of that right there with the detergent right in place, having it easily accessible, and that is setting up for success.
So we've taken great care of our crops and our produce as we've gone through from the moment of harvest and getting them efficiently to the wash pack area, getting them ready for market and packed in cartons or bins. And then what? Well, most of the time we need to make sure that we bring that product down to storage temperature to preserve its quality and keep it fresh. And the way we do that is with a cooler. And so when we're thinking about a cooler, we're really thinking about an insulated space where we can control the temperature. And a key question is, how big a cooler do you need to do what you need to do? And also, how many might you need? Or alternatively, how many zones you might need in one cooler? So there might be crops that want to be stored at slightly different temperatures or different humidities or different temperature and humidity combinations. It's also a key thing to consider is the sizing of the refrigeration need or the heating need. For some winter storage crops, there may actually be times where a little bit of heating might be needed to prevent freezing. So all of these things are important considerations as you're thinking about, a new or renovated wash pack area, post-harvest area. And one tool that we have that can help with answering some of these questions is the crop storage planner. There's a short link there. It's go.uvm.edu/crop planner. One word, and that tool lets you put in what you plan to store and how much of it. You sort of crop by crop. You can enter it in pounds or tons, depending on how big you plan to be. And what this tool does is break that information down into ideal storage zones, one of 4 zones for each crop, and then also gives you a rough idea of the amount of volume you'll need. And it's not just the volume of crop, but we apply a little bit of a margin to it to allow for airflow around the crop and also movement of people in and out of the cooler and shifting of stored produce in the cooler. We also have some guidance on cooler wall options. We talked about this during the building section as well, building and infrastructure section. So we've compiled a number of resources that are helpful in thinking through what kind of wall construction to use for a cooler. And so it's everything from doing standard stud framing with dimensional lumber and insulating that to using prefabricated modular panels like the picture in the upper right corner, where these panels have cam locks that lock them together. They come in more or less standard sizes, so you can grow a cooler over time simply by unlocking some panels and inserting new ones. So a lot of options. They all have different price tags and different levels of potential construction skill required to make them happen. Key principles still apply. We want to make sure that the cooler's built well and is sound construction, is going to be durable, that it's made of materials that are going to hold up to both temperature differences but also moisture. And we want to make sure that it's cleanable and sanitizable.
Thanks for watching this session of project planning for post-harvest efficiency, profitability, and food safety. We hope you're getting a lot out of it and learning things that you can apply to your farm. If you did learn something and do implement something on your farm, let us know. Or if you have a suggestion or a comment of something you've done, we'd love to hear it. So go ahead and comment below or send us an email at producesafety@uvm.edu. Thanks for watching, and I hope you watch the next video.